Today, we're talking about TikTok going toe-to-toe with Big Brother and suing to block the impending ban. A Chinese zoo is stirring up waves online over their use of dogs dyed as pandas in an exhibit. And there are too many schools with not enough bodies to fill them in America. What's gonna happen to them? All in this Friday episode of... But before we start, we got a massive surge of new subs that might be wondering how I ended up in your feed. Odds are, you found me through this.
A frantic search for a missing Washington state woman took a tragic turn last month when her body was discovered tortured and dead in a cemetery in Mexicali.
And if you're not subscribed, make sure you do so you never miss a news update. Now, let's catch up on what's been going on with the infamous TikTok ban first, shall we?
TikTok and its parent company ByteDance have filed a high-stakes lawsuit against the U.S. government, challenging the new law that would force ByteDance to sell TikTok's American operations or face the dreaded nationwide ban.
Things have finally taken the next step in the TikTok saga. On Tuesday, TikTok and owner ByteDance slapped the US government with the major lawsuit, challenging the new law that would force ByteDance to sell off TikTok's American operations or face the nationwide ban on the widely popular app. At the heart of this legal showdown, you have TikTok claiming the law violates the free speech rights of its 102 million US users. In the suit, they argue that being forced to divest the app's US business within a year or shut down completely is an unconstitutional assault on its users' abilities to express themselves. Which, on some level, TikTok has a point. The app is basically a digital town square where Americans share videos, memes, and watch cat clips galore. I am super guilty with that last one. Banning it would deprive users of a core platform for speaking their minds on social media, and that could be a tough free speech claim to counter. Although there are alternatives that are arguably just as large. I guess theoretically everyone could migrate over, but that would require a change in behavior, and getting people to do that is one of just the hardest things to do. So anyhow, TikTok didn't stop there. They also say the government hasn't provided solid evidence for a real national security threat to justify such an extreme move. They claim the law is overly broad and vague with no clear compliance guidelines, which is a good red flag to highlight, by the way. When a law is that vague, you can guarantee it was worded that way with the intent to further utilize it how they see fit in the future. In other words, it starts with TikTok, then Insta, YouTube, you get it. There's another problem too. Even if ByteDance finds a US buyer for TikTok, getting China's approval to sell the app's powerful recommendation algorithm could be nearly impossible, rendering the law utterly impractical. And let's be real, who's gonna buy TikTok anyways? The viable buyers like Meta or Google would create a monopoly nightmare. That's a non-starter for regulators. Or it's supposed to be. I actually wouldn't depend on these people to stop it. So from a legal lens, this case is a massive test of the government's power to restrict social media over security concerns while protecting user rights. Constitutional experts say courts will demand clear, imminent national threats and proof that a TikTok ban is the least restrictive solution. So the ruling won't just set limits on banning social apps. It'll expose how well courts grasp why we communicate the way we do today via apps and platforms. At its core, this case scrutinizes our modern social media habits and whether the government should be regulating them or not. Love it or hate it, this filing will be obsessively watched as it plays out. The future of a global app powerhouse, and perhaps our digital freedoms, hangs in the balance.
A zoo in Jiangsu Province, China, sparked controversy by displaying dogs dyed and trimmed to resemble pandas. The Taizhou Zoo's panda dogs, which are actually chow chow dogs, were showcased to visitors from May 1st, attracting significant attention despite criticisms of potential animal cruelty. This practice of modifying dogs to look like pandas is not new and has seen popularity before.
In a very bizarre move, a zoo in China has sparked outrage and amusement after unveiling its latest exhibit, dogs cosplaying as pandas. Photos of the furry imposters dubbed Pandogs have gone viral online, and my god, they're fucking adorable. The zoo clearly is taking the fake it till you make it approach, maybe a little too literally, but whatever. Since they didn't have any real pandas on site, the zoo decided to get creative. They groomed and dyed a pack of chow chows to look like the country's iconic bamboo munchers. A zoo rep explained that since they have no panda bears at the zoo, they wanted to do this as a result, justifying the prank a little bit. From 8 AM to 5 PM daily, visitors were treated to the hilarious sight of these panda dogs roaming their enclosures, munching on dog treats shaped like bamboo shoots. Some parents even reported their kids were adamant that the pandogs were the real deal. While some cry foul over potential animal cruelty, the zoo insist that the dye jobs were harmless. On social media, reactions were split between outrage and pure pandemonium. I'm sorry. I completely understand if you want to unsubscribe now. I mean, don't, but, you know, I understand. Anyway, some visitors didn't seem to mind being duped, admitting the Pandogs were more entertaining than the actual pandas lazily munching around all day. And as it turns out, Pandogs were already a thing a decade ago when pet stores struggled to meet demand for the panda pooch makeovers, so outrage may be misplaced here. The zoo stands firm on the claim that no animals were harmed in the making of this prank, but animal rights groups are urging an investigation into possible welfare violations. In the meantime, the Pandogs remain a hot topic, and I can see dyeing your pet to look like a larger animal becoming a thing. So what animal would your pet look good as? And would you be willing to dye it? I might, if it's safe, which it looks like it is, so I mean, I might.
Across America, a growing issue in urban education is the surplus of school facilities relative to the number of students. As urban districts like Los Angeles face declining birth rates and increasing competition from alternative educational options, they are left with difficult decisions about managing an excess of school buildings.
Too many schools, too few students. It's a problem facing urban school districts across the nation. Declining birth rates, families moving away, and the growth of charter schools and other alternatives leaving too many public schools with too few students. For instance, the Wall Street Journal took a look at LA's Hilda L. Solis Learning Academy. The tiny high school in East LA is down to just 170 students, forcing its closure this summer. Math teacher Melanie Gutierrez knows that the district can't afford to keep such a small school open financially, but she laments that the small size is actually great for the kids. Once touted to house 600 students, sadly Solis never even reached the 400 enrollee mark. With dwindling numbers, the school can only afford to offer basic graduation requirements. That means no electives, no advanced classes, and definitely no robust extracurriculars. Solis is the canary in the coal mine.
You were always like my canary, I suppose. Thank you.
Between 2019 and 2022, urban schools nationwide lost nearly 850,000 students, a nearly 5.5% enrollment drop according to a Brookings analysis. Yet the number of school buildings remains virtually unchanged, leaving more emptying campuses behind. Small schools can definitely be a benefit for students, but if enrollment gets too low, cost per pupil rises while programming shrinks. Schools need a critical mass of students to afford enrichment programs like arts, athletics, and supplemental staff. And the solution of closing small schools is sparking community uproar. Janelle Foster, formerly on the St. Paul School Board, said that everybody wants to keep their schools because the school becomes part of their family and community. Sadly, she voted to shutter several small schools there in 2021 amid bitter protests. In San Antonio, officials plan to close 15 schools next year, citing unsustainable costs at tiny campuses. In Inglewood, near LA, students have even walked out in protests of 5 pending closures. And as usual, the impacts tend to weigh heavier on communities of color. A recent study found that schools with more students of color face higher closure risks, even accounting for enrollment levels. Chicago's 2013 shuttering of 50 schools, many in Black and Latino areas, drew fierce opposition that nearly toppled the mayor at the time. A University of Chicago study later found academic harm to those displaced students. In New York City, the nation's largest district has seen pre-K through 12th enrollment plummet from over 1 million to under 900,000 since 2017. School leaders there have acknowledged the problem, but have only closed a few schools so far. Los Angeles, once plagued by overcrowding, has lost nearly 350,000 students since its 2003 peak after a massive construction campaign. The school board there recently voted to shutter Solis and reopen the campus as an engineering magnet program. Superintendent Alberto Carvalho says that at some point communities are going to need to ask themselves if they'd rather 3 very old, under-enrolled schools or one shiny new campus. For now, the agonizing debate over closing beloved but shrinking schools looks only to intensify across urban America. And on that piece of I'm gonna call it. If you're one of the 10% of people that make it to the end of these videos, first of all, thanks buddy, nice to meet you. Second of all, hit that like button, help spread a little bit of news. And well, I'll catch you next week.